Hello, everyone, and welcome back to season 4 of the SPIMA Council podcast. As always, my name is Madeline Grossi. I'm one of your co hosts for this season, as well as the podcast administrator. Joining me today, we have Jackson Pretley, also a co host, the production manager, and the social media manager. And then we also have a special guest today, Kat. She is our senior director of events here at the SPIMA Council podcast as well. And we're going to throw it over to Cameron, I'm going to throw it over to Jackson to introduce our guest, Cameron.
Thank you, Maddie. So on today's episode, we have Cameron Penney. Cameron graduated from the University of Ottawa with an honor bachelor of arts degree in communication. Cameron has had lots of experience in the sport industry, starting by working with the varsity hockey team's communication staff before moving on to working with the Moncton Wildcats Hockey Club as their manager of community relations and fan experience. Today, Cameron finds himself as the manager of social media at True North Sports and Entertainment, and we welcome him as the 19th guest here on the SPIMA Council podcast.
Thank you very much. 19 is my number, so this worked out pretty great.
Wow.
Perfect. That's what we like to hear. So let's get right into it, Cameron. So can you just start off about tell us about a little bit about your career in the sport industry, a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I feel like it got started right away when I started post-secondary. So I started off actually in journalism instead of communications. I thought I wanted to be like a beat writer and working for a newspaper or something like that. So that's what I started off doing in my first year of school. I was doing the academics, and then I was at the rink every weekend writing articles on the varsity hockey team at Carleton University, men's hockey, women's hockey. Did some other sports as well, but hockey was what I always gravitated to. And then along the way, an opportunity popped up to do some broadcasting at the University of Ottawa. So some color commentary, some play-by-play. I thought that was kind of interesting. So that kind of snowballed along the way, and it turned into, hey, can you help support our social media with making this graphic, or can you write this story? Or there was a time I remember I made this video showing the day in the life of a University of Ottawa hockey player to help them recruit. So I was still a Carleton student at the time, but I was sitting in the back of a lecture hall at the University of Ottawa with a camera videotaping the hockey players while they did notes from the lecture. Like, it was just this really funny experience. And then so that turned into a larger role at the University of Ottawa, and I really liked the hockey groups there. So it just kind of felt easier to go continue my undergraduate degree there at the University of Ottawa. So that's where, like you said, I graduated from the University of Ottawa with a communications degree. Worked a lot, mostly with the men's hockey and the women's hockey teams on their social media. And it was just a mix of everything. You know, it was live tweeting the hockey games, creating graphics, creating videos, little marketing initiatives, writing stories for the website. Just you're wearing just about every hat imaginable. And that turned into an opportunity once I had my degree to work with the athletics department. So I was the assistant for sports information and was doing the same thing, right? Some articles, working with all the social media accounts, but it was with all the varsity teams now instead of just hockey. So I felt that gave a really positive experience just to kind of see what sports I liked working with best. But it was always hockey for me, and I was looking for that kind of opportunity to keep climbing in hockey. And that's where the opportunity came about to join the Moncton Wildcats, which ended up being really unique because I was hired to join the team March 2020. So my first day working with the Moncton Wildcats, I went to the rink. They gave me the cell phone, the laptop, and they said, okay, go home now because we're all socially distancing. And then that night, the CHL canceled the season. So it was really quite a first week working for the Moncton Wildcats, and through that kind of COVID bubble, maritime only season. And so I was with Moncton for about a year and a half, and the opportunity came up with the Winnipeg Jets, and that was kind of more of a homecoming for myself. I grew up in Fort Frances, Ontario. It's a 4-hour drive from Winnipeg, whereas Ottawa was between the planes and the cars. It's a 12-hour day to get home. Moncton to Fort Frances, I don't even know how long that would have taken because I never got the opportunity to do it during COVID. But going back closer to home was a really special opportunity for me. So to get hired by True North Sports and Entertainment and work on social media with the Winnipeg Jets has been quite the thrill.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like how you said that you normally gravitate towards hockey, but everything you've learned is kind of transferable and you can apply it to all different sports, because I think that's one of the things that we get told a lot here, especially in your first few years of the sport management program, is like you can love hockey or you can love baseball, you can love whatever sport you want, but there's always going to be an opportunity, and you just have to use your skills no matter where you are. And I think that's an important lesson that you touched on there.
100%. I think it's the same with the skill set. Like the University of Ottawa, where there's all those different responsibilities, right? Where I was editing videos or making graphic designs, writing stories. You got to do a lot of different roles because there's not as many people available to work on that, right? Whereas now
Mhm.
at our sports and entertainment, if I need a graphic for social media, I don't make it myself. I work with different colleagues across the departments to get that produced together. It's not everything is just on my plate anymore, and I can focus on the elements I'm most passionate about.
Yeah, for sure. And then you kind of touched on it there, some different skills that you use while working. But what skills or lessons do you think you've learned so far, or like are most valuable to you working in kind of like that community relations, social media, fan experience roles that you've been able to experience?
Yeah, I think looking back on it so far, I think without taking that step to Moncton, there's no chance I'm in Winnipeg today. Like I had to go learn and work in Moncton and the QMJHL there. And the reason for that is it's such a collaborative environment with such a small staff. So there was like, I remember off the top of my head now, like 6, 7, or 8 full-time people. So my responsibility was community relations and fan experience, but I was talking to the ticket sales manager every day because
Mm,
there's that collaborative effort between, okay, we're working with these groups in the community. Well, they're going to come and set up an activation on the concourse of the game, but we're also going to share with the group some tickets. So you got to work together on that. Or you're promoting it on social media with the communications manager, and you need to promote the web page for the community relations on the website. So now you got to work with the graphic designer to put that together. So it's just really great working those small groups together, and you form these really strong bonds quickly. And I think
mhm,
looking back to when I got to Moncton, I didn't have as strong of a grasp on the business side of sports that I thought I did. Because just in my experience when I was at university, there was less of an emphasis on the ticket sales and the sponsorships. And we focus more on growing our brand and trying to get that awareness out in the community through social media. Whereas in
mhm,
Moncton, there was a stronger emphasis on the sponsorships and the ticket sales and the different ticket promos we could do. And even though my title was community relations and fan experience, there was certainly a blend working with all those departments, and I learned a lot working from our director of corporate sales and the ticket sales and those different elements too.
Did you have like a favorite moment, like because you said fan experience, and like I'm very passionate about fan experience. So
Yeah,
you have like a favorite moment in Moncton, like fan experience wise, like a your best memory in terms of something.
yeah. I think fan experience during that time in Moncton is just so unique because I was there during the pandemic and I left right as the pandemic was starting to end. So like a funny thing I think about too is, so University of Ottawa, I worked all the hockey games on a men's hockey season. I was very lucky to have the opportunity to travel on the road, which I never did meet someone else with a different team that had that similar opportunity. So I was working only 28 hockey games in the regular season, and then 3, 6, 9 playoff games. And then I go to Moncton, and Moncton's that 68 game season. But now I've removed the road element, and now we've got COVID that threw a wrench in our plans. And I only ended up working 19 home games that season.
huh,
And then I leave for Winnipeg and immediately jump to 60 games a season. So Moncton was just so unique because it was that COVID year, and we had games with partial capacity, we had games with next to no capacity. And so I think the biggest thing with the fan experience was just trying to adjust it on the fly, just to keep that atmosphere in that environment, even when you couldn't have as many people in the building as you wanted to. So it was always trying to get creative and find these different ideas. And I think that was the lesson for me, was trying to see what could you pull from other teams that they're doing and how can you apply it in your market and bring it into there. One of the things I implemented in Moncton that I thought was a lot of fun was working with a group called FanX. And so we brought digital activations onto the phones. So I was coming up with these trivia questions, and we would put it up on the Jumbotron, and fans in the venue or at home could pull it up on their app and answer it. And on the Jumbotron, you would see what everyone was saying. And that was a lot of fun for me as a sports information kind of guy. And it was kind of our 25th anniversary season, so there's a lot of history you could pull from. And the QMJHL had a really incredible resource for finding historical records and stuff on their website. And then we spun that out even further, and you wanted to kind of gamify the hockey game, right? So it's gambling, but you can't call it gambling. So I was coming up with like these 5-part parlays, being like, is there over or under 12 shots in a period? and we were integrating that with the app, and then I could track it during the game, and I could see everyone's answers. So I could tweet in the live tweets that, okay, 40% of our fans were right, and we got more than 12 shots in that period. I remember one time I asked, is a forward or a defenseman going to score the first goal of the game? Of course, everyone picked forward, and then we had a defenseman score first, so it killed everyone's parlays that I created. So that was a lot of fun to try and with that fan experience, because then the idea that we had was, if you're predicting there's going to be 12 or more shots in a period, we're sitting at 11 and there's a minute left of the period, you're really going to be screaming to shoot the puck, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully that kind of builds up the atmosphere in the venue.
No, that's a cool like program there.
Awesome. You kind of touched on it, Cam, too, but I guess how does it, you think, or your day-to-day tasks from Moncton or even with Ottawa change now that you're at Winnipeg?
Yeah, I just think like, just no matter where you're working in sports, I think that I found every day is so different, and that's what I love. And there's always a different challenge every day and different projects you got to focus on. And then like Moncton, it always felt like because since my focus was home games, right? And so I was focused on the fan experience. So putting together the activations. I was also building some of the elements for game presentation, which is pretty unique because I didn't necessarily have that education background, but I had the experience in making graphics and motion graphics. So that offered a bit of extra value to Moncton to bring me in, because I could do some roles beyond my normal scope. So for Moncton, I always just kind of felt like you're looking at the calendar and what's the next home game and what do I got to make sure I'm done in time. Whereas Winnipeg, since I work all 82 regular season games, it's almost like just a one day at a time mentality. And so we've got a lot of spreadsheets set up with a month view, a week view, a daily view of what needs to be tackled on social media today. So like today, for example, is an off day. We just got back from Carolina last night. So it's just a bit of activations from our corporate partners or some entertaining content that we created at the start of the season from the production day that we sprinkle out throughout the year. I can run through like yesterday as an example, because we were on the road in Carolina, and probably a road game day is one of the more busy ones for me. So I'm rolling out all the social media posts throughout the day. So that starts out, it just kind of seems like the universe has all agreed that everyone puts out their game day post at 9 a.m. So that's where my day starts, is I got to get that post out at 9 a.m. One of the differences from university versus NHL was I remember at university, I had to manually push all those posts out. So I had to be sitting on my computer at 8:55, ready to hit post on Facebook, post on Twitter, post on Instagram. Here in Winnipeg, we've got some software that can kind of manage and oversee some of the social media. So I can build some of that in advance. Instagram, you still got to do manually on your phone, but Twitter and Facebook get automated, which is really nice. So there's some automated posts that go out throughout the morning, and then we go to the rink for the morning skate at 11:30. So you're kind of looking around for some good photo or video opportunities that might be engaging or interesting for social media. I like to do TikTok live a lot too, which I haven't really seen across the NHL yet. I'm not sure how many other teams are doing it, but it's really popular in Winnipeg, where we do a TikTok live where we show off the morning skate. And it's been really interesting. Like, you see a lot of reoccurring fans over time, and like the reoccurring jokes are like, they don't know my name, they don't know my face, but they just know my voice off camera. And I just like, it's a bit of chaotic energy. I'm just kind of aggressively zooming in on whichever players they want to see and talking about the game. And so it's pretty cool when you get like 200 people live at once, just hammering you with questions about what's your favorite road rink, or is Josh Morrissey going to play tonight, all kinds of stuff like that. That's really cool. So then once the morning skate wraps up, there's the media availabilities with the players and the coach, and then we head back to the hotel for the afternoon. So then we have other people traveling that are creating the videos and writing articles based on what's going on. And so they're sending all that content to me, and I'm scheduling it out to get posted in the afternoon to drive some of those views.
No,
and then, sorry, you jump in question?
No, keep going.
Okay. So that brings you to late afternoon, like 4 o'clock. The buses start getting ready to go to the rink. So I stand outside the hotel and do a little bit of a paparazzi impersonation and take pictures of the players as they walk out of the hotel. And because the fans just love the pictures of the players in the suits. Like it's one of our top performing pieces. So we do a lot of those posts, and the fans really love it. And then you get to the rink, and now it's just kind of making sure you've got everything set for, there's a couple more automated posts to go before the game starts. Maybe there's a great moment that happens at the sewer ball or something that's worth posting as well. And then you got your warm-ups, you're taking some pictures, getting some videos at ice level, and then running up to the press box as fast as you can and editing some of those photos and getting the starting lineup graphic out. And then once the puck drops, it gets a bit more relaxing, because now you're just kind of this eye in the sky watching the game from the press box. In every venue in the league, the NHL has live social coordinators. So they're down at ice level capturing photos and videos for us. Winnipeg, we've also got a videographer on the road capturing video. So then I'm just sitting in the press box. People are sending photos and videos to me. And I'm just kind of on Twitter. Our strategy is just to react as a second screen experience live alongside the fans. So a lot of yelling, a lot of tweets with capital letters, a lot of excitement, posting highlight celebration videos. And then you just kind of roll with the game as it goes. And then hopefully you win and you get to keep rolling with some more fun stuff to post after the game. And if you lose, it's a bit more mellowed out a bit. It's a bit of a quieter night. But suddenly that's 13, 14 hours your day gone, and you're getting on an airplane and flying back to Winnipeg.
So sorry, by the end of the day there, how many posts do you think happen like in a day on game day?
Yeah. If we win and we're posting a lot, I think it comes in around 100. Well, obviously like Twitter's going to inflate those numbers, right?
Yeah.
Like Instagram, you've got your game day post. Maybe you're doing a feed post for morning skate. Maybe you're doing a feed post for arrivals. And then we pretty often do a feed post for every goal. And then you got your final score. And then it's, did we win? So then there's the jacket presentation where the players give their the jacket to the MVP and the unsung player. That could be another post. That could, maybe the coach had a good speech that's worth posting. So maybe like, so then that's what, 10 posts on Instagram. That's still only a fraction of it. I think the bulk's just, Twitter yelling about goals and stuff. Yeah. If it's a quieter night, maybe it's 60 posts or so. There's also, like the game day counts as 4 posts, right? Because it's your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram, and your Instagram story. So those kind of inflate the numbers a lot too. What if you're putting a lot of pictures on the Instagram story that night? That counts in our post total. It could 100 sounds like a lot, but then once you start breaking it down, it's not as overwhelming.
No, makes sense. And then because you talk about like how you take pictures, like the players come out in their suits. Do you have like some players that shy away from the camera and some players that like love the camera? And like how do you find the balance between those?
Yeah, they're all just pretty quiet. They go about their business and just pretend I'm not there. And then so I just kind of try and pretend I'm not there too. So I just quietly take some pictures and hope I get some good ones, and kind of try and see what that could build for a social post. So last night is the example. Like a ton of them were walking out with coffee cups, and one of the players looked at me and gave me a big grin and pointed at his coffee cup. So then like that's an easy social post. Like I'm just making jokes about how much they love coffee, or I think the line I used on Instagram was today's National Pie Day, but we're more focused on coffee. You're looking for those opportunities to kind of have some fun and tie it together. That's been really interesting this year too, as we're getting a lot of feedback on some of our captions that we write after the games, which has been kind of crazy. Like there was that storyline. Well, not story. It was in the news where those hot air balloons kept getting shot down, the UFOs. So that was happening on the night that we were playing against the Chicago Blackhawks. So we beat them, and I tweeted, NORAD has confirmed several unidentified saucers located in the back of Chicago's net. And like that was like a throwaway joke that I thought about tossing out in the second intermission. I wasn't sure, but I used it for the end of the game, and it like exploded. Like people loved it. So that's been kind of surreal, just coming up with some of these jokes and just people really reacting to them.
It's interesting talking about some of the players, and like how they interact with like fans or even staff, because like I work at the TFC as part of their game crew, so we're always out there before the game, like with the volunteers and like setting up for opening ceremonies. And I always have to say to the kids, or like there's even like a warm-up like fan tunnel, so you can like stand in the tunnel and like shake their hand as they go out. But you have to make it so clear to them, which is so hard to understand sometimes when you're such a big fan, is like they're in game mode. Like athletes are in game mode before like a big game. Like the whole day they're just focused. So like you can't stop them in the fan tunnel and be like, "Can I have your picture? Can I have your autograph?" Like you have to stand there. You almost like you said, Cameron, like you have to be invisible. Like you have to act like you're not there. But like take in the moment as much as you can, because sometimes while we're practicing, like players come out and like touch the grass and like see how cold it is and whatever, and I have to say like, oh, like Michael Bradley is going to walk by you in 5 minutes, but you can't speak to him because like he's getting ready for the game, and then everybody freaks out. Or like especially with the new Italian players too, like everybody wants to see them and get to know them, but it's so hard for people to kind of wrap their head around that concept, or like you can't speak to them when they're in like game mode. I don't know.
Yeah, I think just a lot of my big moments for capturing stuff is just kind of just this fly on the wall, stay out of the way, especially leading up to that game, because you're in their space, you're
Yeah.
in their home essentially, so you want to make sure that you're out of the way as much as possible. We were in Vegas earlier this season, and the players were doing sewer ball, and it was Pierre-Luc Dubois and David Rittich, and so I was trying to capture like, oh, the who's gonna win moment, because sometimes you get some cool stuff to post there. And so instead of playing sewer ball like you'd expect, where they volley it back and forth, David just kicked it as hard as he could at Pierre-Luc and then ran away laughing, because essentially he won because Pierre-Luc couldn't kick it back. And I just happened to be standing there quietly in the corner videotaping it. And it's turned into this big moment now that every time David wins a game, we tweet that laughing clip because the fans love it so much.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And then we've talked a lot about like this year with your time with the Winnipeg Jacks. So what has been your favorite marketing activation or social media project that you've worked on this year?
Yeah, that's so hard to nail down, because there's so many different ones that have been a lot of fun. This one definitely not a unique idea. I remember spotting it from some other teams shortly before I was hired, but it's that we call it in Winnipeg life questions, that question of the day kind of moment where as the players are walking out, you're asking some sort of question. And it's been interesting how that's evolved over the 2 years, because when I started with it, I was convinced that can't interfere, can't get in their face. They're going to be a bit more open if you're not around. So I was propping up my phone on a tripod and then leaning the sign against the phone. And I had it set to the front facing camera so the players could see themselves. And I was hiding around the corner where they couldn't see me, but I could hear them and see them coming out. I was turning the camera on and off with my Apple Watch. So then they were just reacting by themselves. I wasn't there, which you got some good answers and stuff. But then at the same time, sometimes they'd be answering the question, but they're not on camera or they're not near the microphone. And it wasn't quite working as well. So then we evolved it. And now I stand right on the bench with the phone in one hand and the sign in the other with the question for them to read. And definitely the highlight this year has been one of the questions we found from Twitter. Oh, cat's gone.
Yeah, that's okay.
Do you want to pause the story or keep going? I'll keep going.
Keep going. Yeah, that's okay.
You can tune into the podcast to get the rest of the story. So one of the questions we found online was, does a straw have one hole or two?
Okay.
And so it's kind of like that, is the dress blue or gold, right? Like
Yeah.
I really want the question that's going to kind of separate the group. And so the group was really divided as they walked out answering the question. And then my favorite part was they'd go on the ice, they'd twirl around for a bit, because this is before like practice really starts, right? So they're just kind of warming up, and they would argue with each other on the ice and then skate back to me and say, hey, I want to redo my answer. And then so we did that, and then all the players had come out, I got all the video I wanted, and then one of the players skates up to me on the bench and starts arguing with me about it. And I was like, hey, like if you're gonna argue with me, you got to let me just like stand here like this so I can like videotape you arguing with me.
Yeah.
And that brought a whole group of guys, and next thing you know, there's like 5 guys in a semicircle giving their arguments back and forth on it. Well, I'm just sitting there like it was just incredible. It was just this amazing organic moment that popped up in front of me. And then so the way that day worked out was we were practicing and then flying to LA for a road trip. We had a game against the Kings the following night. So we do the question, we film it, we go on the plane, I edit the video on the plane, post it that night. The fans loved it. And I find out at morning skate the next day that even well after practice was over, the players were still arguing with each other whether or not the answer was 1 or 2. So that was in October, and I've been chasing that feeling ever since to try and find the kind of questions that bring a lot of fun, but bring a lot of conversation too.
Yeah, that's cool.
What's your answer to the question then?
Well, so my theory was 2 because it's got to go in one and out the other. Or no, my answer was one hole. But then like there was one of the players was like, well, if you're digging a grave, what do you call that? That's a hole, and it's only got one opening. A straw's got 2 openings. So it was just, it was so like I'm confusing myself now just trying to remember all the argument. I'm pretty sure my argument was 1 hole, but it was pretty mixed 50-50 between the two. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yesterday, I know that the TFC did one again, and it was like, "What's your favorite type of pie?" And
Yeah,
somebody
that's
said
perfect.
somebody said like cheesecake, and then their answer, their like caption was like, I don't know, something like today's pie day. Do you consider like cheesecake a pie? Like it was so weird, but it's so
Yeah,
funny. I love
that's
seeing those
perfect.
like players answering those questions because that then you kind of get to know who they are like off
Yeah.
the ice and like out of that kind of like I don't know, like athlete persona. You just get to know who they are.
I think we've seen too, like when we do these life questions, there's a lot of players that are like really invested in it and want to give a good answer and want to hear what some of their teammates are saying. And I think we've built a lot of connections between the fan and the player just based on how much they love the personality of the player during these videos. So that's a really cool way to kind of connect the players, especially in a season like last year where we still had some COVID restrictions and you weren't able to connect with the players as much in person. You could get that interaction through social media, and it was great.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about like your favorite moments of sport like in your current roles and what you've done before, but what was like your favorite memory maybe going back as like a kid that made you want to join sport or what made you like switch your program in university?
Switching the program was just kind of, I think like it's kind of funny to say, but so I started off as a journalist. Like I really liked I thought beat reporter was something that I wanted to do, writing about a team over the course of the season. I was kind of interested in maybe broadcasting or radio a bit. Like it was my first year of school. I was kind of experimenting with it all.
Mm.
And then I think when I started that role at the University of Ottawa, that's when I kind of decided I wanted to work for a team instead of reporting on a team. Because like there's a two different perspectives on it. You're reporting on a team, you're very neutral, you're telling the story, the good and the bad, and you're trying to build up these relationships with the organization, but you're not necessarily their friends, right? Whereas if you work for the team, you're only focusing on the positive. You know, you can build those stronger relationships within the organization, because like you don't ever have to focus on the negativity. It's almost I joke it's a bit of journalism on easy mode. So not saying I took the easy way out, but I just kind of found I ended up really liking working for a team, um and just when I was working for the University of Ottawa doing the role I did, I kind of said, you know, I'd love to be doing what I'm doing right now, but at the NHL level. And you know, Winnipeg was the team closest to my hometown. So if I ever made a list of teams I'd want to be a part of, Winnipeg was always number one. So to be here right now is still it's I've been here a year and a half and it's still incredibly surreal just to think about it.
No, it's not. And then just a little bit more about your time at Ottawa. What was your what did you like most about working in the sport department? Like what was your like would you like maybe like working in U Sports compared to the NHL?
Yeah, so the best part about working in U Sports, or I'd rather call it CIS, I'll give a shout out my buddies that I worked with. We all still call it CIS just because of the memories. So I got to throw that in there. But it's the lifelong friendships that you're gonna make. I've got a group chat on my phone with like 8 different guys, and we all know each other because we worked in university sports for a number of years, and we were all spending our Friday nights together at cold rinks and writing or making videos or broadcasting or doing whatever we were, right? And it was just a ton of fun. And those are some lifelong connections I'm going to have for the rest of my life. I still remember too, my first year at Carleton, I was writing an article talking to some of the graduating players. And I said, what are you going to miss about playing at Carleton? And the captain told me, I'm going to miss the purity of the hockey here. I didn't really understand what he meant by that. And so he elaborated and he talked about how, you know, he'd obviously played 5 years in the OHL before doing 5 years at Carleton. And so whether it's the junior hockey or whether it's the NHL or the minor leagues, there's trades, there's free agency, there's so much player movement. But for him as an athlete, when you walk in that locker room at the university level, it's that same group of guys for the whole year. No one's getting traded. No one's leaving because of their contract. It's you've got a tight-knit group of 25. And I was just really lucky to join the University of Ottawa, and I did, because they were kind of like an expansion franchise in a sense. Like they had 25 first-year players, and in my final season at the university, there was like, 16 graduating players all at the same time. And it was just these players that you worked with for 4 consecutive years that, pick any 4-year span in Winnipeg, and you're not going to find 16 constant players, right? So that's the awesome part about university sports, is you're working such tight knit with all these people, and you get to work together with them for a long time.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes, like I also work at school down at the equipment room, and sometimes we can sign up for like extra shifts. Usually, it's basketball and volleyball games, and honestly, I don't really love to go out that much. Like at university, like I don't have to have something to do every Friday night. So when those varsity games are on, I love signing up for those because I have just as much fun standing in our gym, like watching the basketball game, working the basketball game and the volleyball game, but you also get to be there and experience it. I have just as much fun being there and getting paid to be there than I do going out with my friends. So I try to take on as many of those games as I can because it's only for a few months of the school year, and it's also like Brock students should take advantage of that too. It's free. All of your student tickets are free to come for regular season games, and it's so much fun to be in there. So I definitely can see where you're coming from. Those university sports can get intense, and our women's volleyball just won gold. Just won OUAs the other day, and they're off to Vancouver for the U Sports Championship. So
yeah, it's an exciting time right now. We were in Florida and Tampa on this road trip, and I was following all the basketball nationals in Halifax. Looked like it was a ton of fun. I worked Ottawa hosted the nationals my last season working there, so those are some great events to be a part of.
Yeah. Well, Cameron, we've had a great talk today. I've had so much fun. We've learned so much about you and your journey through the sports industry. So on behalf of Jackson and I from the SPIMA Council podcast, and Kat, I think she was having some technical difficulties, but that's okay.
Thank you. To listen to it now.
I know. Well, thank you for joining us, and we always like to give our guests the final word and give you the floor before we close it off. So thank you. We've had such a great talk, and the floor is yours.
Go GGs. I don't know what else to add there, but thank you so much for having me. This was a ton of fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Pleasure.
See you later.